My Papa's Waltz. Excellent poem. The first thing you'll notice is that it's 4 lines and 4 stanzas. So we have this 4/4 time, which is very indicative of the pop songs you hear today on the radio. The waltz is symbolic for the rhythmic ritual that takes place consistently between father and son. So, what do we know about the dad? He's got whiskey on his breath. He's probably a drunk. His hand is battered. He probably does manual labor. So, the dad basically comes home from work, gets drunk, beats up on the kid a little bit, and then takes him to bed. The pans slid from the kitchen shelf. Personification. The pans don't just decide to slide from the shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The mother is the only one who can unfrown her face. So what he's doing here is deflecting blame from the father. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. He's not saying that you missed me and then you cut my ear on your buckle. No, he's saying that his ear scraped the buckle like, oops, I messed up. But what's incredibly ironic is that he does not blame the dad. So we have a rhythmic, ritualistic child abuse. The Victims by Sharon Olds is a poem that does not have that rhythm and flow, but it has a really interesting story. What I want you to focus on here is about halfway down. The story flips considerably. So in the blue on the top there, she's a kid. The family is angry with the father, so they wanted to kick him out, and they did. They got him fired. They were tickled to think of his office being taken away. This was all exciting for the kids because dad's the bad guy. But then she says she taught us to take it, to hate you, to take it. So what's going on here is the mother is teaching the children to take it, to hate the dad, and to take it. Which means that the mother has more input into the situation. And this happens a lot when people get divorced. The parents, unfortunately, will try to get the children to be on one side or the other. Well, then once we get to the white, she has grown up. Now I pass the bums in the doorways. And what does she wonder? I wonder who took it and took it from them until they had given it all away and had nothing left but this. Which is really interesting. She now sees them as victims. So in the poem, who would be considered the victims? Well, at first it was definitely the mother, and the children were on her side. But then as she grew up, maybe some of these dads were the victims. Maybe some of these people who lost it all were the victims and not the perpetrators of their own demise. There's 2 sides to every story. And this is what you need to remember from the poem. Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas is an amazing poem. The good night is actually symbolic for death. So it's completely ironic that death would be classified as the good night. He claims that old age should burn and rave at the close of day. So people should fight all the way to the end. Then what he does, he goes through 4 different kinds of people. Wise men, good men, wild men, grave men. The wise men, their words didn't fork any lightning. They didn't have the impression that they wanted. But they keep fighting. The good men, they had these frail deeds that might have been amazing, but they still rage. The wild men, they wake up to life a little too late. These are the guys who like to dilly-dally and party until they're in their 40s and 50s. They do not go gentle. He's telling them, do not go gentle. Grave men, who are actually sad men, who see with blinding sight. Now, they could be happy if they would wake up and not have blind eyes. He's telling them again to rage against the dying of the light. So he's telling all these people that even though you didn't get what you wanted out of life, don't give up. And he does the same to his father. This is actually about his father, who was on his deathbed at the time. They did not have a good relationship. So he wants his dad to show him something. Curse me, bless me, do something. Show me some emotion that you have some fire left. Sex Without Love by Sharon Olds is really interesting in that it's completely ironic that you could have sex without love, but it happens all the time. She wonders how do they do it, and she uses some very beautiful references. Beautiful as dancers gliding over each other, ice skaters, all these performance kinds of things. So these people are performing with one another, but they've been trained to perform. She says they're the true religious, the purest, the pros, the ones who will not accept a false messiah, but they love the priest instead of the God. So these are the people who worship the flesh more than the spiritual. And if you translate that, it's the people who have sex, but there's no love. So in the end, she compares them to runners, which is interesting because runners are very solitary people, and they're fighting against their own best time. So sex for them is kind of a performance in the bedroom, and it's not about the love for another person. The last poem, Marks, all you really need to know is that the speaker is being judged by her family based on her domestic duties. Now the end is the kicker here. Wait till they learn I'm dropping out. We don't know exactly what that means. The ambiguity could suggest she's just not going to do any more domestic duties. That means no more cooking, no more sex, no more cleaning up after the kids. Or does dropping out mean she's actually going to leave the relationship and split from the family? We're not exactly positive. We do know that it's a judgmental scorecard. It's unfortunate. And that'll wrap it up for the poetry.